What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Seahawks Now, your home for all things daily Seahawks news, rumors, and updates. Today, I've got a little bit of a fun video for you guys. We're talking about the three keys, in my opinion, for how the Seahawks can return to the Super Bowl. But before we get into all of that, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. It really means a lot. It really helps the channel out when you do that. And thank you so much for watching. Make sure you also hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss another breaking Seahawks news alert update. With that all being said, let's jump into the video, guys. With the Super Bowl coming up this Sunday, the Seahawks are starting to kind of come into this new area where they're no longer that team that has just been in the Super Bowl. They're no longer in that same category of great teams. They're starting to fall behind, right? You've got the Chiefs, you've got the Patriots, you've got the Eagles, the 49ers, the Rams, the Bengals, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who am I missing? The Panthers, the Falcons, Denver. There's about 10 teams now that have made the Super Bowl since the last time the Seahawks did. So we're starting to, no longer are the Seahawks a recent Super Bowl team. They're now kind of, it's been 11 years now since the Seahawks were in the Super Bowl. What are the three keys for the Seahawks to get back to the big game? That is what we're talking about today, guys. The three keys for how the Seahawks can get back to the big game. The three keys are on the side right there, guys. Offensive line, pass rusher, quarterback. Step one, get the O-line right. You have to get the offensive line right. I've been saying this for years on my other channel, the NW Sportscast, and this is basically just, it feels like it's John Schneider's biggest weakness, because the Seahawks have not had a really solid offensive line since they traded Max Unger away in 2015. When they traded Max Unger for Jimmy Graham, that felt like when the O-line all went downhill, and it has not been the same since then. And so, I think a lot of people are probably making those decisions. I don't want to blame it only on John Schneider, but he is the general manager. And so you do have to put some of the blame squarely on him, because when he makes comments like, I don't want to overdraft an O-lineman, at some point you have to understand, when the whole league is taking linemen in the first and second rounds, that's not overdrafting. That's just where their value is. And it's similarly when he says, I don't want to overpay an offensive lineman in free agency. Again, it's not overpaying when every other team is willing to pay. That means that's what their value is. So I don't think it's that he doesn't want to overpay. I just think that he doesn't see the value in offensive linemen that other teams see. The problem is those other teams are right. You look at the Chiefs, look at their offensive line, man. Joe Tooney's going to be a Hall of Famer. Creed Humphrey probably is also going to be a Hall of Famer. They have two Hall of Famers on their offensive line. The Patriots, during their dynasty run with Tom Brady, had multiple Hall of Famers on their offensive line. Philadelphia, Lane Johnson. Before him, Jason Kelsey. Both Hall of Famers. Both went to multiple Super Bowls. Both won the Super Bowl back in 2018. And everywhere you look at Tampa Bay when they won the Super Bowl. They got Tristan Wirfs, probably going to be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. I don't want to make judgment too early, but really, really good. Look at Dallas and their runs of dominance. Always have multiple Hall of Famers. Zach Thomas on that O-line. So my point is that, and even in your own division, by the way, 49ers, you think they're going to have that success if they don't have a Hall of Fame left tackle? Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think Brock Purdy is having that level of success if he doesn't have a Hall of Fame left tackle. So my point is, offensive line is a wildly important position because not only it helps the quarterback, it affects the quarterback, it affects the run game, and it affects the passing game. So it affects all facets of your offense. Receivers are great, but receivers are only helpful on passing plays. Running backs can be helpful on both because they can come out of the backfield. But running backs are mostly more valuable on running plays. The offensive line, you need them for passing and running, and QB sneaks, and tush pushes, and goal line plays. You need them for special teams. The offensive line, I think it's the most important position group besides quarterback. I think it is the most important position group. I think that has to be your step one, is you have to get the offensive line right. What's step two? You got to establish a consistent pass rush. It's been a while since the Seahawks have had a really consistent pass rusher. They've had guys over the years who've come and gone, and they've been good. I mean, look, we brought in Jadeveon Clowney a few years ago, and he was great. Before that, Frank Clark had a couple really good years. But it has felt like ever since those Super Bowl years, it's always been kind of every year it's the same story. Who are we going to bring in who can get some sacks? And then we bring in a guy, and they probably get a few sacks, but normally they end up leaving us in free agency anyways. The Seahawks need to have a consistent pass rush, and that doesn't necessarily mean one guy. That means a team of guys who are consistently getting 3+ sacks a game. Because getting pressure on the opposing quarterback is the best way to beat the opposing quarterback. Especially when it's guys who are younger, especially when it's guys who aren't stars. Like, yes, Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, they're going to find ways to beat you even if you have the best pass rush in the league. Just ask the 2022 Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe the greatest pass rush of all time. And Patrick Mahomes dropped 38 points on them in the Super Bowl. But unless you're playing Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, every other quarterback in the league is probably going to struggle if you can generate consistent pressure. And that is such a key. So I think the Seahawks should really target on establishing a consistent pass rush, whether that means you go get 3 guys who are decent or whether that means you go try to find one superstar pass rusher like a Myles Garrett. But Myles Garrett's do not grow on trees. So an easier way, potentially, instead of going out and getting Myles Garrett, who's going to get 15 sacks a year, go get 3 guys who can give you 5 sacks a year. Of course, it doesn't all work out the same because those guys have to play more. But still, you understand what I'm saying. You don't necessarily need a star to have a great pass rush. You can have 3 solid players instead of 1 great player. But you have to get a consistency, I think, is key there. And then step 3. Find a quarterback who wins. And I kind of struggled on how I wanted to phrase this. Whether I wanted to say find a star quarterback. I landed on to say find a quarterback who wins because I don't think you necessarily need a star quarterback. Now, in a lot of cases, you do, right? If you look at the last Super Bowl winners, Mahomes, Stafford, who that year he was in the MVP conversation, and that was his best. That was his career year. So I would say that year, and in the years before that, he was a star, not a superstar, but a star. And then before that was Brady, Mahomes, Brady again, and then that weird one with Nick Foles. But then before that again was Brady, Peyton Manning, and Russell Wilson, who again I think Russell Wilson was a star. So yeah. In most cases, you do need a star at quarterback, but you don't necessarily need one because Nick Foles he won a Super Bowl. Eli Manning won 2. Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. So what separated them? Well, they weren't necessarily stars, but they won. Right? Manning with those Giants teams wasn't a star, but he was a winner and he was clutch. Same as Joe Flacco, right? Joe Flacco not a star, but he won games and he was clutch. Brock Purdy on the 49ers, Jimmy G, not stars, but they win. They're winners. They can get to the Super Bowl because they're consistent and they're clutch. So it doesn't necessarily mean you need a star. It means you need someone who can win. Now, maybe Geno is that guy. But if he's not the guy, if you really think he can be the guy, you have to decide to extend him. If he's not the guy, you have to find someone who can be the guy. Whether in the draft or free agency, find a quarterback who wins. That is the 3 keys, guys. Those are my 3 keys, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. Comment down below. Do you think I missed anything? Do you agree with these keys? Do you disagree with these keys? And drop a prediction down in the comments. What year will the Seahawks make a return to the Super Bowl? Personally, I hate to be a pessimist. I'm not sure if I see it happening in the near future. I just feel like with the domination of guys like Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Jaden Daniels looks really, really good, really, really young. The Lions have built a fantastic culture there. I find it hard to see a scenario where the Seahawks can win it. Maybe they can sneak there and get to the Super Bowl if the NFC's weaker. But when I'm looking at all these superstar quarterbacks in the league, I just don't see a really clear path for the Seahawks to get there right now. But that can always change. And the number one way to make it change, I think, get the O-line right, get the pass rush right, and find a quarterback who wins. With that all being said, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. And as always, go Seahawks.